February 14, 1933. The basement door closes behind Bumpy Johnson. 12 guns click in the darkness. He's alone, outnumbered, trapped. Dutch Schultz had sent his most ruthless killers. Tommy the Executioner Vento 16 bodies to his name. Marty Icepick Delaney, a man who made corpses disappear. 10 others whose names even the cops hadn't learned yet. Men who didn't ask questions. Men who didn't miss. They'd been waiting for hours in that Cotton Club basement, waiting for the moment Bumpy Johnson would walk into his own execution. He was 27 years old, still building his reputation, still proving himself in a city that ate young men alive. Dutch Schultz. He was already a legend. The most feared mobster in New York, a man who'd eliminated over 40 enemies without losing a night's sleep. Everyone knew how this would end. Another body, another story whispered in Harlem speakeasies, another king who thought he could stand against the tide. But 90 minutes later, only one of those 12 men walked out alive. And the message he delivered, it made Dutch Schultz a man who'd never flinched at violence go pale. This is the story of the night. Bumpy Johnson became untouchable. To understand what happened in that basement, you need to understand what Harlem had become. The Harlem Renaissance was dying. The Great Depression had drained the music, the art, the hope from these streets. People were starving, desperate, clinging to anything that promised a way out. And when people are desperate, they gambled. The numbers racket. An illegal lottery that ran through every block, every brownstone, every back-alley dice game. Bet a nickel, win $50. For families making $7 a week, that nickel wasn't just money. It was hope. And hope was the most valuable currency in Harlem. Dutch Schultz saw that currency flowing through black hands, and he wanted it. He was a German Jewish mobster from the Bronx who'd built an empire on bootleg whiskey during Prohibition. Millions of dollars, corrupt cops on his payroll, politicians who looked the other way. But Prohibition was ending. His empire was crumbling. He needed new territory, so he turned his eyes south to Harlem. Saw all that money changing hands in the numbers game. Saw a community the police barely protected. Saw opportunity there, and Dutch Schultz always took what he wanted. There was just one problem. Harlem already had rulers. Madame Stephanie Sinclair, the Queen of Numbers, a Caribbean immigrant who'd built her empire from absolutely nothing. And her enforcer, a young man named Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy wasn't like the other muscle in New York. He wasn't just a triggerman. Wasn't just another thug with a gun and a short fuse. He was something more dangerous. He was smart, self-educated in prison, reading Shakespeare, studying philosophy, understanding power in ways most street criminals never could. He understood something fundamental in Harlem. Respect wasn't bought with fear. It was earned with loyalty. When Madame St. Clair's runners got robbed, Bumpy got the money back and made sure it never happened again. When dirty cops tried to shake down black-owned businesses, Bumpy made them disappear. Not always violently. Sometimes just their careers vanished. Their reputations, their futures. He was strategic, calculated, patient, and he refused to bow to Dutch Schultz. January 1933. Dutch sent his emissaries to Harlem. 3 men in expensive suits who didn't belong in these neighborhoods. They sat down with Madame Sinclair at her club on 133rd Street. The smoke was thick. The music was low. The tension, you could cut it with a knife. The message was simple. Work with Dutch. Pay tribute. Or get buried. Madame Sinclair, this woman who'd survived poverty, racism, and every attempt to destroy her, looked at these white men sitting at a table. She let the silence stretch. Let them feel uncomfortable in her domain. Then she said 2 words. Get out. The emissaries turned to Bumpy, standing silent in the corner, watching everything. One of them smiled. That kind of smile meant to intimidate. You want to be smart about this, boy? Bumpy didn't move. Didn't speak, just stared. That stare. The one that made grown men check their life insurance policies. The one that promised consequences without uttering a single threat. The emissaries left, reported back to Dutch Schultz, a man who'd never been told no by anyone, certainly not by a black woman, and her enforcer made his decision. Burn it all down. Starting with him, he didn't just want Bumpy dead. He wanted it to be a message, public, brutal, unforgettable. The kind of death that makes everyone else fall in line immediately. February 14, 1933, Valentine's Day. The irony wouldn't be lost on anyone. Bumpy got a tip. Dutch's men were planning to hit Madame Sinclair's main counting house on Lenox Avenue at dawn. The place where all the money from the numbers game was stored, counted, distributed. Bumpy went to check it out. Alone. That was his first mistake, or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe Bumpy knew exactly what he was walking into. Cotton Club basement. Not the famous Cotton Club downtown where white audiences watched black performers. This was the real Cotton Club. The after-hours spot where Harlem's players came to drink, gamble, settle scores away from police eyes. The basement. Storage. Crates of illegal liquor. Poker tables. hash boxes, and one exit, a narrow staircase, leading up to the street art perfect place for an ambush. 4:32 a.m. Bumpy descended those stairs, each step echoing in the silence. The room was dark except for one bare light bulb swinging from the ceiling, casting shadows that moved like ghosts, and then he heard it dot click 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 dot, the sound of safeties being released, hammers being cocked, 12 guns, 12 men stepping out of the shadows like demons materializing from hell itself. Tommy the executioner, Vento, stepped forward. 16 kills to his name. Always close range. Always looked his victims in the eye. As the light left him, he smiled. Dutch sends his regards. Bumpy stood there, hands at his sides, face completely calm. He looked around the room slowly, deliberately, counting 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. He looked back at Tommy. That all he sent. Tommy's smile faded. See, that's the thing about Bumpy Johnson that people never understood. He didn't posture. He didn't bluff. He didn't waste words on empty threats. If he said something, he meant it. And standing there, outnumbered 12-1, asking if that was all they sent. That wasn't bravado. That was calculation. You got about 5 seconds to beg, Tommy said, raising his gun. Bumpy tilted his head slightly. You're making a mistake. What mistake? You're about to be dead. The mistake, Bumpy said slowly, his voice steady as a heartbeat, is thinking, I came here alone. 12 guns stayed trained on him. But now there was something else in the room. Hesitation. Doubt. Tommy glanced toward the stairs. Nothing. Looked back at Bumpy. You're bluffing. Bumpy smiled for the first time. Cold. Certain. Then shoot. Nobody shot. Because here's what Dutch Schultz's men didn't know. Bumpy Johnson had been fighting since he was 10 years old. Charleston, South Carolina. Before Harlem street fights. Prison riots. Wars over territory that left bodies in alleys. He'd learned something most men never learn. Violence has a rhythm. And right now, standing in that basement with 12 guns pointed at his chest, Bumpy controlled the rhythm. Tommy's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. Bumpy moved. What happened next? Nobody could fully explain it afterward. The one survivor's testimony was confused, fragmented, haunted. But here's what we know. Bumpy didn't go for a gun. He went for the light. One punch, the hanging bulb shattered. Glass rained down. Darkness. Complete. Absolute. Then chaos. The first shots came wild. Panicked. Men shooting at shadows, at sounds, at nothing. Muzzle flashes illuminating faces twisted in fear for split seconds before darkness swallowed them again. Tommy screaming, hold your fire, hold your fire. But fear doesn't listen to orders. In that darkness, Bumpy became something else. Something primal. He knew that Rune had played poker there 100 times. Knew every crate, every table, every corner, every inch of floor. Dutch's men didn't. One by one, you could hear them going down. Not from gunshots. Bumpy didn't waste bullets. He used his hands. He used their confusion. He used the fact that in their panic, they were shooting each other. A scream, a body hitting concrete, another gunshot, closer this time. Another scream, cut short. Tommy tried to rally them. The stairs. Get to the stairs. But Bumpy was already there, waiting. The violence lasted maybe 3 minutes. 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. 3 minutes that would echo through Harlem for decades. And then ... silence. When someone finally opened the basement door from upstairs, let light spill down those steps. Here's what they found. 11 bodies. Not all dead, but all down. Broken bones. Gunshot wounds from friendly fire. Unconscious, bleeding, groaning in agony. And one man sitting on the floor against the wall, hyperventilating, gun still clutched in his shaking hand. Marty Icepick Delaney. The only one still conscious. Bumpy was gone. Vanished like smoke. Marty Delaney crawled up those stairs. Took him 20 minutes. Every step was agony. Broken ribs. Maybe worse. Blood trailing behind him. He made it to the street as the sun was coming up. Flagged down a cab with blood-soaked money. Bronx, he gasped. Arthur Avenue. Dutch Schultz's headquarters. 8:17 a.m. Marty stumbled into Dutch's social club. Dutch was eating breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, reading the newspaper like it was any other morning. He looked up, saw Marty covered in blood, and went completely still. Where are the others? Marty couldn't speak at first. Just shook his head. Where are my men dead? Marty finally whispered. All of them. Dutch stood up slowly. His breakfast forgotten. He let me live. To give you a message. The entire room went quiet. Dutch's lieutenants, his accountants, his bodyguards, everyone stopped, watched. What messes? Dutch's voice was ice. Marty reached into his jacket. Dutch's men reached for their guns instinctively. But Marty pulled out a single playing card. The Ace of Spades, covered in dried blood. He placed it on the table in front of Dutch. He said to tell you, Harlem's not for sale. And if you send more men. Marty swallowed hard. Send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch Schultz stared at that card for a long time. His men waited for the order, waited for Dutch to unleash hell, to send 50 men to burn Harlem to the ground, to show everyone what happens when you disrespect Dutch Schultz instead. Dutch picked up the card, studied it, then smiled. Not a happy smile, a smile of recognition, of respect. He's got balls, I'll give him that. Boss, we can't let this Dutch held up his hand. Silence. You know what it costs to go to war with someone who's not afraid to die? Someone who's smarter than you. Someone who has an entire neighborhood behind him. He shook his head slowly. It costs everything. And for what? Numbers, money. He dropped the card in the ashtray, lit it on fire, watched it burn. There's easier money. We're done in Harlem. Let Bumpy Johnson have it. The decision shocked everyone. Dutch Schultz, the man who'd gone to war with Lucky Luciano, who'd killed his own partners over disrespect, who never backed down, was backing down. Why? Because Bumpy had done something even Dutch respected. He'd proven he was willing to die for his principles, for his community, for his word. And men like that, you don't fight them, you either kill them or you leave them alone. And Dutch couldn't kill Bumpy Johnson. Years later, in the 1970s, a reporter tracked down one of the Cotton Club's old employees, asking what really happened that night. The old man smiled. You want the truth? Bumpy wasn't alone. What? He had 4 guys upstairs the whole time. They locked the basement door from the outside once Dutch's men went down, trapped them in. The reporter's eyes widened. So it was a setup. Bumpy could have killed all 12 if he wanted, but he let one live, on purpose. Why? The old man leaned back, eyes distant with memory. Because Bumpy understood something most men never learn. Killing Dutch's men would start a war, humiliating them. That ends it, whether that's true or legend. Nobody knows for sure. What we do know after that night, Dutch Schultz never sent another man to Harlem. Bumpy Johnson became the undisputed king of Harlem's underworld, and for the next 35 years, he protected that neighborhood like it was his own family. Not with indiscriminate violence, with strategy, with intelligence, with a code, and that Ace of Spades. Bumpy kept it, framed it, hung it in his office. A reminder. Respect isn't given, it's taken. February 14th, 1933. 12 men walked into a basement. 1 walked out, and Harlem was never the same. If this story hit you, smash that subscribe button. We're telling the Bumpy Johnson story's history forgot. The moments that made him a legend. The code that made him untouchable. Drop a like if you think Bumpy was the smartest man in Harlem. And in the comments, what would you have done if you were Dutch Schultz? More legendary stories coming tomorrow. Don't miss it.